Welcome back to the English Hour. Everyone, I'm your host, Sophia, and today we have an exciting episode lined up for you. Our guest, Jacob, is here to talk about the importance of emotional intelligence in everyday life. Jacob, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Sophia. I'm really excited to be here and talk about such an important topic.
Emotional intelligence, or EQ, is something many of us hear about but might not fully understand. So, let's dive in. To start off, Jacob, how would you define emotional intelligence?
Great question. Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our own emotions, as well as recognize, understand, and influence the emotions of others. It's all about being aware of how emotions impact our decisions, relationships, and overall well-being.
I love that. So, it's not just about controlling our own feelings, but also being mindful of how others are feeling. Why do you think emotional intelligence is becoming such a hot topic these days?
Well, I think we're living in a time where social interactions and relationships are more important than ever, whether it's in our personal lives or at work. Emotional intelligence plays a huge role in communication, conflict resolution, and even leadership. People are realizing that skills like empathy, emotional awareness, and active listening are essential for success in all aspects of life.
Absolutely. I've heard a lot about how high EQ can be a major factor in leadership success. Can you explain how emotional intelligence impacts leadership?
Definitely. A leader with high emotional intelligence is able to connect with their team on a deeper level. They understand what motivates people, and they can navigate through challenges with empathy and resilience. Rather than just giving orders, emotionally intelligent leaders build trust, encourage collaboration, and support their team's personal and professional growth. It's about understanding that people are human, and sometimes they need more than just direction, they need understanding.
That's such a good point. So, for anyone listening who might be wondering, how can we start developing our emotional intelligence? Are there any practical steps we can take?
Yes, there are. First, self-awareness is key. Try to regularly check in with your emotions. Ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling this way? Once you understand your emotions, you can better manage them. Second, empathy is crucial. Try to put yourself in other people's shoes. It's not always easy, but understanding the emotions of others helps you connect and communicate more effectively. Finally, active listening is a great skill to practice. When someone speaks to you, focus on truly listening to what they're saying, not just waiting for your turn to talk.
I love that. It's so easy to get caught up in our own thoughts and rush into responses, but taking a moment to really listen and understand is so valuable.
Exactly. And it can transform your relationships, whether at work or in your personal life. When people feel heard, they're more likely to trust you and engage with you on a deeper level. That's what emotional intelligence is all about: connection.
That's so powerful. Now, I have to ask, do you think emotional intelligence can be learned? Or is it something that's inherent in certain people?
Great question. Emotional intelligence is definitely a skill that can be developed. Some people might naturally be more attuned to their own emotions or the emotions of others, but with practice, anyone can improve their EQ. It's about being mindful and making an effort to learn and grow in these areas. It's like any other skill, you can always improve with time and dedication.
I couldn't agree more. It's not something that's fixed, it's something we can actively work on. Thank you so much for sharing all of this, Jacob. It's such an important topic, and I think our listeners will really benefit from these insights.
Thank you, Sophia. It was such a pleasure to chat about emotional intelligence. I hope it helps people start thinking about how they can improve their relationships and understand themselves better.
Absolutely. And to everyone listening, remember, emotional intelligence isn't just a nice to have. It's a skill that can improve your life and relationships in so many ways. Thank you for tuning in to the English Hour, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more episodes like this. We'll be back next time with more insightful conversations. Take care, and keep learning. Welcome back to the English Hour. Everyone, I'm your host, Sophia, and today we have a fantastic guest with us, Jacob, who's sharing insights on emotional intelligence. Jacob, before we continue, let's talk a bit more about some real life examples of emotional intelligence in action. Do you have any personal experiences or stories that you'd like to share?
Oh, definitely. One thing that comes to mind is a situation in my previous job. I was working with a team on a major project, and we were facing tight deadlines. One of the team members started to get really stressed and frustrated, and I could see it affecting her work and the team's dynamic. Instead of ignoring it, I took the time to pull her aside and simply ask how she was feeling. It turned out that she was overwhelmed, not just with the project, but with some personal issues as well. By acknowledging her feelings and offering support, we were able to work together to find a solution and finish the project on time.
That's such a great example of how emotional intelligence can positively impact both personal and professional situations. It's not always easy to approach someone when they're struggling, but your empathy really made a difference.
Exactly. It's all about creating an environment where people feel safe to express themselves. When you show that you care, it encourages others to be open and honest, which in turn helps the team function better. Emotional intelligence isn't just about managing your own emotions, it's about understanding and supporting others too.
You're so right. I think that's one of the key aspects of emotional intelligence that a lot of people overlook. It's not just about you. It's about fostering a sense of connection and support with the people around you. But how do you think emotional intelligence plays a role in conflict resolution?
Great question. Conflict is inevitable in any environment, whether it's at work or in personal relationships. What emotional intelligence allows us to do is approach conflict in a healthy way. Instead of reacting impulsively or emotionally, it helps us stay calm and think clearly. For example, instead of raising your voice or letting anger take over, you can use your emotional awareness to manage your feelings and express yourself calmly. By understanding the emotions at play, both your own and the other person's, you're more likely to find a solution that works for everyone involved.
I love that perspective. It makes me think about how often people try to avoid conflict. But it's actually a natural part of life. And when approached with emotional intelligence, it can lead to deeper understanding and stronger relationships.
Absolutely. Conflict doesn't have to be a bad thing. In fact, when handled with emotional intelligence, it can be a learning experience. You're able to understand differing viewpoints and find common ground. It can even strengthen relationships by showing that you care enough to address the issue rather than letting it fester.
That's such a great point. I think a lot of people are afraid of conflict because they associate it with negativity. But when you approach it with a mindset of growth and understanding, it's so much more productive.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that emotional intelligence also involves knowing when to step back and give someone space. Not every situation needs to be addressed immediately. Sometimes it's about reading the situation and knowing when it's time to talk and when it's time to give someone the time they need to process their emotions.
Yes, that's key. I think a lot of people struggle with this. Sometimes we feel the need to resolve everything right away. But giving space can be just as important as offering a solution.
Absolutely. Giving space shows empathy too. It's about respecting others' emotional needs. Sometimes people just need a moment to calm down and collect their thoughts before they're ready to talk things through. Emotional intelligence is knowing when to push forward and when to pull back.
That's a great takeaway. And what about when we're dealing with emotions that are harder to manage, like anger or frustration? How do we use emotional intelligence to deal with those more challenging emotions?
That's a really important aspect of emotional intelligence. First and foremost, it's crucial to acknowledge the emotion. Trying to ignore anger or frustration only makes it worse. Once you recognize the emotion, it's about understanding where it's coming from. Ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? What triggered this emotion? Understanding the root cause can help you manage it better.
That makes a lot of sense. It's not about suppressing the feeling, but understanding it and giving yourself space to process it.
Exactly. Once you understand why you're feeling the way you are, you can decide how to respond in a constructive way. For example, if you're feeling frustrated, instead of taking it out on someone else, you can take a step back, breathe, and find a healthier outlet for that emotion, like going for a walk or journaling. It's all about taking control of your emotions rather than letting them control you.
That's such an important lesson. I think many people feel like emotions, especially negative ones, are something that happened to them. But with emotional intelligence, we can choose how to respond.
Exactly. Emotional intelligence gives you the tools to manage your emotions and make decisions that align with your values, rather than reacting impulsively. It allows you to approach situations with more clarity and calmness.
I think this is such an important skill, especially in today's fast-paced world, where emotions can sometimes get the better of us. And it's also great that, as we mentioned earlier, it's a skill that can be developed.
Absolutely. And it's a lifelong journey. You'll never stop learning and improving your emotional intelligence. But the more you practice, the more natural it becomes.
I love that idea, emotional intelligence as a lifelong journey. It's not something that you perfect overnight, but the growth and progress over time make it all worth it. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jacob, and for sharing all of these valuable insights. I think our listeners will really benefit from hearing about emotional intelligence and how they can apply it in their own lives.
Thank you for having me, Sophia. It's been such a pleasure to be here, and I hope the conversation helps people start thinking about how they can cultivate emotional intelligence in their own lives.
Absolutely. And to everyone listening, I hope today's episode has given you some food for thought. Remember, emotional intelligence is all about understanding yourself and others, and it can have a profound impact on your personal and professional life. Thanks again for tuning in to the English Hour. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more insightful episodes like this one. Until next time, take care and keep growing. Before we wrap up, Jacob, let's talk a little more about how emotional intelligence affects our relationships with others. What role does it play in maintaining healthy, long-term relationships?
That's a great question, Sophia. Emotional intelligence is absolutely vital in maintaining healthy relationships, whether they're romantic, familial, or professional. The key is empathy, being able to understand the emotions of the other person and responding with care. Emotional intelligence allows us to be mindful of how our words and actions affect others, which is crucial in preventing misunderstandings or unnecessary conflicts.
That makes sense. In relationships, sometimes we can get caught up in our own feelings and forget to consider the other person's perspective. But emotional intelligence really encourages us to step into their shoes.
Exactly. And when we take the time to understand the other person's emotional state, we're also showing that we care about their well-being. This can help build trust, which is the foundation of any strong relationship. For example, if your partner is feeling stressed about work, instead of brushing it off or offering unsolicited advice, you could show empathy by simply listening and offering a supportive presence. That alone can do wonders for the relationship.
I love that example. Sometimes, we think we have to solve everything for the other person, but sometimes just being there to listen is enough to make them feel supported and understood.
Absolutely. Active listening is such an important part of emotional intelligence in relationships. It's not just about hearing the words someone is saying, but also understanding the emotions behind those words. When you listen with empathy, you show the person that you care, and this can create a safe space for them to open up and be vulnerable.
And vulnerability is so important. It's where real connection happens, right?
Yes, exactly. Vulnerability is where true intimacy in relationships is built. But it takes emotional intelligence to create a space where both people feel comfortable being vulnerable. You have to be able to manage your own emotions and be supportive of the other person's emotional needs.
I think this is something that can really improve relationships over time. But emotional intelligence doesn't just help in difficult situations, does it? It also plays a role in celebrating happy moments and supporting each other during the good times.
Oh, for sure. Emotional intelligence is about being aware of and celebrating positive emotions as much as it's about managing negative ones. When something good happens to a friend or partner, acknowledging their happiness and sharing in that joy strengthens the relationship. It shows that you're emotionally invested and genuinely happy for them. That shared celebration fosters positive emotions and brings people closer together.
I love that idea. So, emotional intelligence isn't just about navigating challenges, it's also about being present during the good times, celebrating success, and sharing those happy moments with others.
Exactly, it's about balance. Emotional intelligence helps us navigate both the ups and downs of life, and by practicing it, we can create stronger, more fulfilling connections with the people around us.
And it's so encouraging to hear that we can all develop this skill over time, right? It's not something that's fixed, but something we can work on every day.
Absolutely, emotional intelligence is like a muscle. You can strengthen it with practice. It might take time, and you might face setbacks along the way, but with patience and dedication, you can continue to improve. And it's worth the effort because the positive impact it has on your relationships and overall well-being is incredible.
I think we could all benefit from working on our emotional intelligence more consciously. It's not just about understanding emotions, but using that understanding to create more meaningful connections.
Definitely. And the more we practice emotional intelligence, the more it becomes second nature. It's about being mindful of ourselves and others, responding with empathy, and fostering an environment of trust and openness.
That's such a powerful takeaway, Jacob. I'm sure our listeners will walk away from this conversation with some great tools to apply in their own lives. Thank you again for sharing your knowledge and experiences with us today. This has been such a valuable conversation.
Thank you for having me, Sophia. It's been a pleasure to discuss emotional intelligence with you, and I hope it inspires people to start practicing it in their own lives.
Absolutely. And to everyone tuning in, I encourage you to reflect on your own emotional intelligence. How can you improve your self-awareness? How can you use empathy to strengthen your relationships? Keep practicing, and remember, it's a journey, not a destination. Thank you so much for listening to the English Hour. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more episodes filled with insightful discussions. Until next time, take care, and keep growing. Before we wrap up, Jacob, I wanted to ask you, how do you stay motivated to keep improving your emotional intelligence, especially when faced with challenges or setbacks?
That's such a good question, Sophia. For me, it's all about being kind to myself. When setbacks happen, I try not to be too hard on myself. Emotional intelligence is a lifelong journey, and like any skill, it's normal to have ups and downs. I think it's important to acknowledge the progress you've made, even if you haven't perfected everything yet. That way, you keep your motivation up and avoid feeling discouraged.
I love that. Self-compassion is such an important part of growth. And sometimes, just taking a step back and recognizing how far we've come can be the motivation we need to keep going.
Exactly. I also remind myself that emotional intelligence isn't about being perfect, it's about being aware and willing to learn from every situation. Whether it's a difficult conversation or a moment of celebration, there's always something to learn about myself and how I interact with others.
That's such a healthy mindset. So, instead of focusing on perfection, it's more about the process and the intention to keep improving. That's really encouraging.
Absolutely. And also surrounding myself with people who are emotionally intelligent is really helpful. Being around people who practice empathy and emotional awareness helps me stay motivated and learn from them. It's like being in a positive, supportive environment where everyone is committed to growth.
That's such a great point. The people we surround ourselves with can have a huge impact on our personal growth. Being in a community that values emotional intelligence can really make a difference.
Yes, it's like a cycle when you're around emotionally intelligent people. You start to pick up on their behaviors and attitudes, and it encourages you to practice those same qualities. And when you see the positive outcomes of that, it reinforces the desire to keep improving.
It's amazing how much we can learn from each other just by being in the right environment. And even the smallest steps towards emotional growth can have a huge impact on our relationships.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's the little things like taking a moment to pause and think before responding, or really listening to someone when they're talking that can make all the difference. Those small, intentional actions can transform the way we interact with others.
It's true. And it's so encouraging to hear that these small steps, when practiced consistently, can lead to big changes over time.
Yes, it's all about consistency and the willingness to keep learning. And it's never too late to start. Whether you're 20 or 60, you can always improve your emotional intelligence and create stronger, more meaningful connections with the people around you.
That's such a comforting thought. It's reassuring to know that we all have the ability to grow and improve, no matter where we are in our lives.
Absolutely. And remember, Sophia, it's not about being perfect. It's about being authentic, compassionate, and open to learning from each experience.
I love that. So, it's not about striving for perfection, but striving for progress, right?
Exactly. Progress is the key. Every day, every conversation is an opportunity to practice and grow, and that's what matters most.
That's such a great note to end on. I think this conversation has been so enriching, and I'm sure our listeners will walk away with a new perspective on emotional intelligence.
I hope so. Thank you so much for having me, Sophia. It's been such a pleasure to talk about something so important.
Thank you, Jacob, for sharing your wisdom with us. And to everyone listening, remember that emotional intelligence is a skill you can develop. Start small, stay consistent, and keep growing. Thank you for tuning into the English Hour. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insightful episodes. Until next time, take care and keep growing. Before we wrap up completely, Jacob, is there any final piece of advice you'd like to share with our listeners about emotional intelligence or personal growth?
Definitely, I'd say the most important thing is to not be too hard on yourself. We all have moments where we feel like we're not growing fast enough or making mistakes, but remember that growth takes time, and every experience is a lesson. Be patient with yourself and recognize the small wins along the way. It's the little changes that lead to big transformations.
That's really powerful. It reminds me that it's the process, not just the destination, that's so important. Embracing the journey and the learning that comes with it can make all the difference.
And also, don't underestimate the power of reflection. Taking time to pause and reflect on your actions, reactions, and emotions can provide valuable insights. It helps you understand yourself better and improve your interactions with others.
I love that. Reflection is such a crucial part of growth. It gives us the opportunity to adjust and realign our actions with our goals. And it's something we can do anytime, anywhere.
Exactly. It's not about waiting for the perfect moment to start improving. You can start right now in this moment by just being aware of your thoughts and actions. That awareness can drive so much positive change in your life.
So, in essence, it's all about mindfulness and continuous learning. We can all take steps every day to grow and be more emotionally intelligent.
Yes, that's the heart of it. Emotional intelligence is all about being present, being aware, and choosing to respond with empathy and understanding. And it starts with small, intentional actions.
I couldn't agree more. It's been such an insightful conversation, Jacob. I'm sure our listeners are leaving with a lot to think about.
I hope so. And remember, everyone, emotional intelligence isn't something you achieve, it's something you practice every day. Stay curious, stay compassionate, and never stop learning.
Well said. Thank you again, Jacob, for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Sophia. It's been wonderful being here, and I hope everyone feels inspired to continue their emotional growth journey.
And to our listeners, Thank you for tuning in to the English Hour. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more episodes full of insights and inspiration. Until next time, stay mindful, stay kind, and keep learning. Before we go, Jacob, I just thought of something. How do you personally stay motivated during challenging times? It's one thing to talk about emotional intelligence and self-awareness, but I think people often struggle with staying motivated, especially when things get tough.
That's a great question, Sophia. I think motivation is something that ebbs and flows. There's no magic formula. But for me, it's about breaking things down into manageable steps. When I'm feeling overwhelmed, I focus on the small wins. What can I do today, no matter how tiny? That moves me forward. It might not seem like much at the moment, but those little victories build up over time.
I love that idea. It's about keeping the momentum going, no matter how small the steps. So many people think they need to take huge leaps to make progress. But really, consistency is what makes the biggest difference.
Exactly. And I also remind myself that it's okay to have setbacks. Nobody has a straight line to success. Life is full of ups and downs. What matters is how you respond to those setbacks. Do you give up, or do you use them as learning experiences to grow stronger?
It's true. The way we respond to challenges can define how we move forward. Resilience is key to long-term success. And speaking of resilience, have you noticed any habits or practices that help you build mental resilience?
Yes, one of the biggest things for me is practicing gratitude. Even when things aren't going well, I make it a point to reflect on the things I'm thankful for, whether it's my health, relationships, or even small things like a good cup of coffee. Gratitude shifts your mindset from what's lacking to what's abundant, and that shift makes it easier to stay resilient.
Gratitude is such a powerful tool. It can completely change your perspective, and it's something so simple that anyone can incorporate into their daily routine. Do you have any other daily practices that keep you grounded?
Definitely, I try to stay active, whether that's through yoga, walking, or just stretching throughout the day. Movement helps clear my mind and keeps my energy levels up. Plus, it's a great way to release any tension that might build up during stressful moments.
That's such a simple yet effective way to maintain balance. I think people often underestimate how important physical activity is for mental well-being. It doesn't have to be a big workout, just moving your body can work wonders.
It doesn't have to be intense. Even a short walk outside can do wonders for your mindset. And I also make time for creative activities like journaling or drawing. Those activities allow me to express my feelings without any judgment and help me reconnect with myself.
Creativity is such a powerful outlet. It allows you to channel emotions in a healthy way and gives you space to explore your thoughts without any pressure. I think a lot of people underestimate the value of creative expression.
It really does help. And when you create something, even if it's just for yourself, it can give you a sense of accomplishment. It's like a form of self-care. You're doing something for your soul, not just your to-do list.
That's such a beautiful way to put it. It's easy to get caught up in the daily grind. But doing something that nourishes your spirit is just as important as getting work done.
Exactly. And you don't need to be a professional artist or writer to experience the benefits. It's about allowing yourself the freedom to create without expectations. That's when it's the most fulfilling.
I think we've touched on some really meaningful practices today: gratitude, movement, creativity, and self-compassion. It's all about finding balance, right?
Absolutely. Balance isn't about perfection. It's about knowing that some days will be harder than others, and that's okay. The key is to keep going, be kind to yourself, and keep showing up for your own growth.
Well said. It's been such a rich conversation, Jacob. I'm sure our listeners are walking away with some valuable tools to help them grow, both emotionally and mentally.
I hope so, and just remember, you're never alone in this journey. Everyone is on their own path, and it's okay to reach out for support when you need it.
That's a perfect reminder. Thank you so much for being here, Jacob. It's been such a pleasure talking with you today.
Thank you, Sophia. It's been wonderful sharing this time with you and your listeners.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the English Hour. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insightful conversations. Take care, and we'll see you next time. I love what you mentioned earlier about the little victories, Jacob. I think that's such a powerful way to build momentum, especially when life feels overwhelming. But what about those moments when it feels like there's just too much on your plate? How do you deal with stress during those times?
Oh, I've been there, Sophia. When everything seems like a lot to handle, I try to pause and breathe. Stress has a way of clouding your judgment, and when I'm feeling overloaded, I take a moment to step back, assess the situation, and breathe deeply. Sometimes, a few minutes of mindfulness can help reset my mind.
I can totally relate to that. When you're in the middle of stress, it's hard to see things clearly. Taking that break, even for a few minutes, can really help clear your head and give you a fresh perspective. Do you have any favorite breathing exercises or techniques you use in those moments?
Yes, one I find really helpful is the 4-7-8 breathing technique. It's simple but effective. You inhale through your nose for 4 counts, hold your breath for 7 counts, and then exhale through your mouth for 8 counts. It's a great way to calm your nervous system and refocus.
I've heard about that technique. It's amazing how something so simple can have such a big impact on how you feel. I've also noticed that sometimes when I'm feeling really stressed, it helps to just write down everything that's on my mind. Almost like brain dumping.
I love that. Writing things down can help take the pressure off your mind. It's like externalizing everything you're thinking and feeling so you don't feel so overwhelmed by it all. Plus, once you've written it down, you can prioritize what's actually important and let go of what doesn't need your attention.
Exactly. It's a way to declutter the mental space. I think a lot of people are hesitant to express what they're feeling, whether through writing or speaking, because they fear it might make them appear weak. But it's such a strong tool for mental clarity.
That's so true. It's important to recognize that expressing emotions or acknowledging stress doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. In fact, it takes a lot of strength to confront your emotions rather than bottling them up.
Absolutely. It's about being vulnerable, and that vulnerability can lead to growth. I think people need to be reminded that it's okay to not be okay all the time. Perfection isn't the goal, growth is.
Yes, growth is a continual process. Some days we'll feel like we're thriving, and other days we might just be surviving. But both are valid, and both are part of the journey. As long as we keep moving forward, even in small ways, we're making progress.
I love that, and I think there's something really empowering about recognizing the ups and downs. It's not about always being in the moments, it's about how we handle the lows. Sometimes, it's the lows that teach us the most.
Absolutely. The lows are where we learn resilience, adaptability, and patience. They shape us into stronger versions of ourselves. If everything were always easy, we wouldn't have the opportunity to grow as much.
Right. It's those challenges that really build our character. And speaking of challenges, do you have any personal experiences where you faced a tough moment, but came out stronger on the other side?
Oh, for sure. There was a time in my career when I was feeling stuck. I was doing work I wasn't passionate about, and I felt completely uninspired. But I reached a point where I had to make a change. It wasn't easy, and it took a lot of courage, but I ended up pursuing a different path that aligned more with my values and passions. It was a hard decision, but looking back, it was one of the best things I ever did.
Wow, that's incredible. It must have taken a lot of courage to take that leap of faith, especially when you were feeling unsure about the future.
It definitely wasn't easy, but sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the greatest growth. I've learned to trust myself more through experiences like that. And while it was scary to make a change, it also brought a sense of freedom and fulfillment that I hadn't realized I was missing.
That's such an inspiring story, Jacob. It really shows how sometimes we have to step out of our comfort zones to find our true path. It's not always easy, but it's worth it.
Absolutely. Growth doesn't happen when we stay in our comfort zones. And even though stepping out is difficult, it opens up so many possibilities. You learn new things about yourself and the world around you.
It's so true. I think a lot of people are afraid of change, but change is what pushes us to evolve. And sometimes, you have to take that leap. Even if you don't have all the answers.
Yes, and the funny thing is, once you've taken that leap and look back, you realize that the fear of change was often worse than the change itself. The unknown is always intimidating, but it's not as scary as we make it out to be.
That's such a great point. It's the fear of the unknown that holds people back. But once they take that first step, they often realize they're capable of handling it. You really do have to trust yourself in those moments.
Definitely. Trusting yourself and taking action, even when you're uncertain, is so powerful. It might not be easy, but the growth that comes from it is worth every challenge you face along the way.
Well said. I feel like this conversation has been such a reminder for everyone listening to trust themselves, to embrace the challenges, and to understand that growth often comes from the most difficult moments.
I hope so. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you, Sophia. And to anyone listening, remember to take it one step at a time, trust your instincts, and be kind to yourself along the way.
Such valuable advice, Jacob. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing your insights. To our listeners, thank you for joining us on another episode of the English Hour. Keep growing, keep learning, and we'll see you next time.